Hello, welcome to this, your daily briefing. I'm going to be very straight with you here. If you are looking for, it's really exciting and we might sign so and so and it'll be brilliant because he could do... I don't have that for you because I'm not 10. So I want you to join in, don't get me wrong, but I'm just asking for something a little bit more sophisticated than can't you cheer up, mate? Because, you know, give me something to cheer, yeah, and I'll gladly get involved. This isn't my default setting of being miserable. This is me just being rational and normal. That's why when you go out around the supermarket, for example, there are other places you can go out to these days, you just see people wandering around kind of looking, you know, perhaps with less hair and smaller glasses, but you see people just wandering around like this because the default setting of normal human beings is not sort of agitated hysteria. So I want to talk to you about transfers, and I want to talk to you working on the basis that you're grown adults. So let's see how far we get, and tell me if I'm wrong. Don't just tell me that I'm dull or, you know, I smell or something like that. Like I say, something a bit more sophisticated than the responses of a backward 10-year-old would be enormously welcome. But tell me where I'm wrong. Be specific. Now, the transfer window has only a month to go, which is a huge period of time until you think that how much time has shrunk prior to there being a month left. So what I'm saying to you is we could have done a lot more. You know, it's not like bang, suddenly we're off. And the real question that burns away on my mind in situations such as these is that we have the pre-season starting, and the point of a pre-season is very straightforward. The purpose of a pre-season is to get the squad together after they've had their holidays and they've had their World Cup or Euros or whatever exploits they've been upon. And we get them all together and we get the new signings in, and we sort of say, we've done our farewells to the signings that have gone out, and we've had that churn, that healthy new intake and the exhale of old players. And we find our feet. And those games don't matter. They're not hugely important, but they're more or less about starting the team, the squad, to find its rhythm, to get its momentum going. So when the season starts and points that cannot be quibbled over later, you know, we're in a position to take advantage of the competition, if that makes sense. But we're covered in debt. We're enveloped in debt because of the way that the current owners of Tottenham Hotspur have been conducting themselves. And that means more than any other time we need to sell in order to buy. And yet, I look at all the feeds. You can imagine, I've been doing this for a long time, okay? So I'm not just on, a couple of websites. I'm not just on a couple of news feeds. I'm pretty much going through the dustbins all over the internet, looking to see if I can bring you something which is worth our consideration. Something, in fact, to get hopeful about, something to get cheerful about. Because, like I say, the default setting of people isn't misery, it isn't near hysteria, it's somewhere in between. But all I see Tottenham interested, Tottenham joining the race, and God forbid us, God forbid the monitoring of so many players that we've both have heard of and haven't heard of. And I see virtually nothing about players leaving us, players going away. And this morning, Julien Laurence, who's a broadcast journalist for a number of people, ESPN, BT Sports, RMC Sports, blah, 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 turns up on 5 Live, being told that Tottenham have also entered the race, there you go, there's one of them for you, for Houssem Aouar. Arsenal still keen on Lyon playmaker, but Spurs are in the conversation too now. So, just for gits and shizzles, I looked up this Houssem chap, 23-year-old, better version of Dele Alli. And that kind of told me exactly where we are. Because that situation whereby there's a better version of somebody that we've already got, you could argue is replicated all over the park and all over the transfer feeds. So I've got a list here. Excuse me. I'm going to do my utmost not to just read it out because it would be exceptionally tedious. But so far in, we've had Oliver Skipp, who I believe will make a difference. Ryan Sessegnon, I'm unconvinced. Troy Parrott, I'm utterly unconvinced. Jack Clark, I'm utterly unconvinced. And Cameron Carter-Vickers, end of loan at Bournemouth. But I can see Carter-Vickers finding himself a new home in the loan market. And out, we've got rid of Vicinius because we signed a bit of a shenanigans deal with Benfica, in so much that the buy-out clause was disproportionate to what the kid was actually worth. Bale, we've stopped spending in excess of £1 million a month. And Danny Rose out of contract, Gazzaniga, as we've discussed. And then all of these guys have gone. And it's just worth mentioning here. I mean, Juan Foy, 13 million, that gets lost in the mix. But George Marsh, people were mentioning his name. And I'm good. This is the reason I'm sort of emboldening their names or italicising them, because I want to come back to this. George Marsh, end of contract. Jack Rolls, end of contract. And Keziah Sterling, end of contract. I looked up Keziah Sterling because some outraged consumer replied in the comments, "Oh, you've never heard of Sterling, this tells you everything." Well, I hate to break it to you, buddy, you're probably not even still bothering to tune in, but nobody else has heard of Sterling either, because Spurs aren't keeping him on. But it's this business of mentioning players to what I would argue is to no good purpose. And this is part of the problem. And I keep on talking about the responsibility of reporters to report and not to turn into fantasists. And this cropped up this morning in Football London. And I'll just read you the paragraph so you get the flavour of it, and then I'll come to my point, which is brutally short. Nuno Espirito Santo is taking a good look at Tottenham's academy players as he gets his plans in place for the upcoming campaign. Now in his second week of pre-season training at Hotspur away, following his appointment as head coach a fortnight ago, the absence of a number of first-team stars has meant a handful of the club's youngsters have been given an opportunity to stake their claim ahead of the new term. Now, I understand there's a few players away. I think Sonny is still away. I'm pretty sure Harry Kane is still away. I'm not sure who else is absent. But the idea that there are going to be claims staked here is utterly misleading. And there are players, and I've forgotten the guy's bloody name. This is brilliant, isn't it? You rely on me for nothing, and that's what you get. But there's a chap they're pumping up in the article. I've forgotten his name. I think he is Hungarian or Romanian or something like that. You'll forgive me. But he's 18 years of age that this article is about. And there's no way that this kid is going to stake a claim for anything. Dane Scarlett is broadly regarded as the best of the bunch. Jose Mourinho said that the next World Cup, the World Cup that's immediately on its way, is going to be too soon for him because he's 17. And it was Mourinho who told us that the gap between the current squad and the players that are perhaps destined for better than where they are is too great. They're too young. They haven't developed sufficiently. So we're talking up children, which is effectively what they are, because I tell you for something, neither of these players, Scarlett or the chap whose name I've managed to avoid putting into my notes, neither of them could walk into a supermarket and buy a packet of cigarettes. Just let that sink in. But the players we've been linked with, it's just extraordinary. And I won't go through them all, but we've got Milan Skriniar, 49.5 million. Zaha's name pops up again, 40 million. Belotti, 31.5 million. Couple of players from Mönchengladbach who I would take in a heartbeat just because I know that's a fantastic club. But the point I'm making here is that these players, who's going to pay for them? There are two possible options at the moment based upon what we've seen. One is that Harry Kane is gone, that the deal is done, and Levy knows that he's got 120 million, say, to spend over the next 3, 4, 5 seasons for Manchester City. The other is that he's going to wait and see if he can hold a fire sale in the last 3 or 4 weeks, and really we're talking about the last week, and try and get something for players who don't have any integrity anymore in the game. And I'm talking about Harry Winks. I'm talking about Eric Dyer. You know, there's just so many players there, Davinson Sanchez, that people are unlikely to be scrabbling for and to pay top dollar for. Steven Bergwijn. You know, there's just a whole tranche of these players that, without being horrible to them, they're not in demand. So, are we going to sell 4 or 5 players for not very much, and then bring in 1 or 2 of these it's like a phone book list of players? Or do they already know that the Kane money's gone? Or are we, which is what I think, option 3 is how I feel, we're all being played. And in actual fact, we're going to go into this season with whoever doesn't force their way out, because I can't see anybody, with the exception of Kane, anybody coming in and begging for any of these players. So, like I say, I wish I had something more positive to share with you. I'm looking back through my notes, I wish there was something. I've been scouring around all morning, but all of this business, oh yeah, we're linked with so-and-so, we're linked with blah blah blah, but the reality is we're left puffing up the names of these children. Like I say, they couldn't go into a supermarket and buy a 4-pack of beer, they couldn't buy a packet of cigarettes. These children who are going to be the next best thing. And the reality is, even if they were absolutely sensational, they're too young to be considered for major tournaments, and they're too young to be considered as influential punts for domestic clubs. So I'll keep looking, but as I say, every day I'm coming back with very similar results. Negative. Good luck. Keep it on.